Okay, let's preview our document again. So we have our HTML selector selecting the HTML tag that has wrapped all of our document there and given it a gray background. We have done some styling to the body tag by using the body selector, and that has given us this white background here. What else did it give us? It gave us this bottom border here, right? This green bottom border along the bottom here that's 10 pixels. And we've also set up the fonts here to be the font family Georgia, and if that isn't available, then it would be Times New Roman. If that isn't available, Times, and if that's not available, a serif. Okay, now there's some things that I don't like about this right off the bat. I don't like how this text is completely pushed up against the side here like that. It looks messy, right? There's a lot of, I don't like the way that looks. And so what I'm going to do is change the padding. I'm going to go ahead and close that now and go back into here. And in the body still, I'm going to add some padding, okay? And remember, if you're not clear about padding, here's the reference here. I have those highlighted. Here's all the padding properties, so go ahead and just dig into those and experiment some. But essentially what you're doing is you're adding some space around various elements, and in this case we're going to add some space around the text within the body. Okay, so how we do that is we type in padding. Okay, now colon. I'm going to set the first value, and the first value is actually going to be for top and bottom, and I'm going to set that to 1M. What's an M, right? An M is a relative measurement. 1M is equal to the relative size of the font in the document. So 2M would be twice the size of the relative font size. Okay, so we're setting it to 1M, meaning the same size as the font. Okay, so that's going to be the top and bottom padding between the elements. Okay, the second one I'm going to set at 50 pixels. Okay, and 50 pixels is going to be left and right. Okay, 50 pixels, and then close that up with a semicolon. I'm going to save that, and then let's preview this in Firefox. And see that? We've got some nice padding right there, okay? Okay, nice. That looks much better. It's a little bit easier on the eyes, okay? Go ahead and experiment with some of these now. In fact, let's do that a little bit. Border bottom, that's green. Let's go ahead and make that yellow, okay? And save that. Go back to the HTML document, preview it. Preview it. Now it's yellow. See that? We have a yellow bottom. Okay. Wow, what else can we do here? So we've changed it to yellow. 10 pixels. Let's change that to 90 pixels. Okay, it's going to look totally obnoxious. Come back over here and preview. Look at that. Big, giant slab of yellow there. Okay, but do you see how I'm just experimenting? That's what I mean by experimenting. Just get in there and start changing values, break stuff, you know, and figure out, let's change this to gray and see what happens. I'm going to go back here. Whoops. Save the style sheet, but I want to preview the HTML document that is linking that style sheet. Now we have a gray bottom right here. It's the same gray here, so it doesn't even look like it exists. That was probably a silly thing to do. Let's go ahead and change this back to green. Okay, save that. Come over here and preview. All right, and there you go, green. It's still huge though, isn't it? Yes. Why? Oh, I changed the wrong one here. I'm going to change this back to 50. And then I'm going to change my, by the way, if I'm moving too fast, remember, use the pause button. Okay, I'm going to change this back to 10 pixels. I'm going to save that. So what's going on here now? Our border has a bottom solid line that is 10 pixels, and it's going to span across the entire body. And what color is it? Green. Our padding is the 50 pixels on the left and right, which you can see really easily. And let's go ahead and preview that and see what we got. Yep, 50 pixels right here, 50 pixels right here, and well, it's a little less here because of the words, you know. For example, this word here is strength would actually push this closer to 50 pixels, and so what it does is that puts that over to the next line, okay? And then we have our green line here at the bottom. All right, so you know how I was just jumping around here and changing, you know, values? Do that as much as you can just to get a feel of what's happening, because the more you change things and look at how it's actually rendering, the better understanding of CSS you're going to have. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and leave the body tag now, and we're going to go ahead and style them in H1. Okay, so it's going to have the same styling inherited from the styling in the body because we have declared the font family to be Georgia, Times New Roman, Times, and then serif. You can actually change that by writing a new font family within the new selector. Okay, because what happens here, and this is why it's actually called cascading style sheets, is it actually reads down the page and applies the styles as it goes. And so when it hits a new area, if it's giving it a new font for a new selector, it'll then use that one. Okay, so everything just flows down the page. All right, so let's go ahead and do an H1 selector now. H1, open and close curly braces. There, now we have an H1 selector. I'm going to change the font here, so I'm going to have a font family, just like up there, font family, colon, and then I'm going to make this Arial, okay? Arial, and then we'll make the rest fall back to these same ones. I'm just going to cut and paste right here. I would definitely recommend, or not cut, but copy and paste. Recommend using copy and paste a lot. Okay, so there we go. So that's our font family. And the first one is going to be Arial, whereas this one here is Georgia. Okay, font size. Okay, font size, colon. Now, heading ones are always larger. So what I want to do is I want to make the heading one larger. How much larger? I think I'm going to make it 2M. Okay, now remember, M's are relative to the size of the font. So by saying 2M, I'm saying make it twice the size of the default. Okay, so 2M, and then how do we close those? With a semicolon. Font family. Now let's do font weight as well. Why am I doing font weight? Well, font weight, okay, in an H1 heading, colon. The default is going to be bold. But I don't want it to be bold, okay? I want to be able to control that myself. And so I'm going to put normal, meaning no font weight, okay? It's not going to be bold. It's going to just have normal font weight. Okay, the bold is the default in H1 headings. Font style, we can do font style, okay? Font style. I'm going to make the font style italic, okay? That's all you have to do, okay? And again, you can look these up in your W3 Schools reference here. No problem. All right. So font style, italic, and what else should we do to this now? We can keep going and just keep adding different things. Ooh, the color. So there's the color, and that's. I'm gonna go ahead and put my colon in. Now I'm gonna use a hex number this time. You can use whatever you want here. Remember, you can use keywords, RGB values, or hex numbers. And I'm gonna go ahead and type in $DDD. Okay, and then separate that again, or close that up with a semicolon. How about adding a background color to the H1? Now remember, in CSS, all these things that we're styling, they're treated like blocks, okay? And that's why there's margins and paddings and backgrounds, because it's really like a block. So you'll see what I mean here in a minute. Actually, let's go ahead and preview this right now. That'll actually help you see it. So there we go, all about trees. It's in the gray, it's kind of hard to read, right? And notice it's in italics, and it is in a different font than everything else, okay? It's in Arial, so that worked. However, I'm gonna go ahead and, remember how I said everything's a block? So you can imagine all these all of these are in a block. For example, paragraph here is in a block, and then we've given that block some padding, okay? Now, I'm gonna go ahead and give the background a different color. And so how we do that is we just type in background, and maybe to be more specific, color, colon, and what color should we make this? We'll just use a keyword this time, green, and close that up with a semicolon. So now we have a background color in here, and I'm gonna actually, let's preview it right now. Maybe we'll just keep doing this in little steps. And there we go. We have a background here in this block. Notice how this is butting up against the side, and I don't like the way that looks again, just like I didn't like the way that looked there. So I'm going to go ahead and add just a little bit of padding to that by typing in padding, and then we'll do 5 pixels and by 10 pixels. Okay. All right. Save that. Now let's see what we got. There we go, a little bit of space there. It looks a little better. Does this web page look nice? No. But you can see what we're doing here is we're styling this. Now, one thing I haven't done yet is I haven't gone over to our other one, the willow tree one. Let's go ahead and check that out in Firefox, okay? And same deal, right? So, can you see the power of CSS yet? We got one style sheet and we are styling two different documents. Now you can see why it's so important to divide up your content, why HTML structure by separating content is such an important thing. We have separated our H1 headings, our H3 headings, our paragraph, the body, our borders. And so those will apply to every single page where we have used those elements. All right, pretty sweet. So let's go ahead and style a paragraph now. So we do that with a P selector for paragraph, and again curly braces. And I'm going to go ahead and just hit enter a couple of times here to bring this up a little bit easier to see. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is style the paragraph. And again, right now, remember that the paragraph is actually going to be using the same font, not the H1 font here. It's going to be using the body font. It's going to be inheriting that font from the body, okay? So we don't need to actually add a different font right now. What I'm going to do is I'm going to change the line height a little bit, okay? Line height, and we'll make the line height to be 1.6 times, and I'm going to close that with a semicolon. What I recommend doing is changing these values and continually previewing. Just change them, be obnoxious, change this one to 20, whatever. Just keep changing things and see what happens, okay? Text align, we can actually align the text just like in, you know, a word processor like Microsoft Word or text edit or whatever. You can do, you know, text alignments of left, right, and justified. You can do that here by simply text dash align colon, and then I'm going to justify all my text, okay, and then close that up again with a semicolon. Try, you know, centering the text. You know, go ahead and experiment with these different. In fact, maybe we'll do one here as a preview. Let's look at the text. Okay, so that's how it looks, right? Notice how over here everything is, there's 50 pixels on this side, 50 pixels on this side. It's kind of stretched all the spacing to make it actually look nice and uniform on both sides. That's justifying it. Let's go ahead and center it instead, okay? Center. Save that, come over here and preview. See how it's centered all the text now, right? We got this kind of, it's flowing on both sides. Yes. All right. I don't really like the way that looks as much for this particular thing we're doing, so I'm going to change this back to justify. Okay. And let's go ahead and check that and make sure we did it. See that? Nice and straight on the sides. Okay. We are justified. Okay. So what else should we do here? So we have, let's go ahead and make the width of the paragraphs 60%. Okay. 60%. 60% and semicolon. Save that, come back over here and preview it. See that? How it's made it 60% now of the body, right? Okay. Come back here. So what have we done so far? We have created selectors for HTML, body, H1, and paragraph. And we have all of these wrapped around our content over here. So that's pretty cool, and I think we're not going to go too much further than that. Again, this isn't a coding class, but understanding how these technologies work is really important.